Welcome to Women's Health Unwrapped with Nicola Farndell, a weekly show dedicated to empowering women to unlock the secrets of true health and vitality. Join us as we unwrap what healthy living really means with guest experts and real-life stories to help you get clear on the power of building sustainable, healthy habits without the overwhelm and confusion you feel right now. It's time to strip back and lay out the truth about why taking better care of yourself is the answer to the happy, vibrant life you're striving so hard to create. Hi and welcome to today's episode of Women's Health Unwrapped. I'm joined today by a guest who's going to talk about something that I know for sure impacts lots of women in the improvements they're trying to make in their health, but also in changes in their wider life. We're going to be talking about self-sabotage and how it might be you that is actually standing in your way of improving your health and building a more vibrant, thriving life. So I'm joined by our guest expert, Terry Tateossian, who is a coach, and she works with women to help them regain their confidence so that they can find their true purpose. And she does this through strength training, nutrition and mindset, which we'll find out more as we dive into Terry's own story and expertise. So welcome to the podcast, Terry.
Thank you, Nicola. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate you having me on as a guest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because it is such a big topic, and it's something that isn't necessarily obvious when somebody starts out wanting to change something in their health, which is part of your own story as well that we'll dive into. But just to kick us off, I'd love to know from you what your own most impactful healthy habit is in your toolkit right now.
Absolutely. The most impactful habit that I have currently in my toolkit is to keep my emotional state regulated and my mindset really sharp and on point and as aware as possible. Because without that, a lot of things can fall through the cracks.
Yeah, that's a biggie, isn't it? And is there any specific practice that you have in your daily routine that helps you with that?
Generally, a lot of people say meditation. I don't meditate. My meditation is strength training, cardio, and walking and being outside as much as possible, and being connected to people that I care about in a community that is nurturing and supportive, and I have a lot in common with. And that usually that circle is not very big, but having good friends or great friends is better than having 100 acquaintances.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think in midlife, many women start to reflect on that in their own lives and realize that it is much more important and impactful to have fewer, better quality relationships. And the community, I think, is certainly something that we're more aware of now with the online space that we can all inhabit as well. You know, that there are these opportunities to be part of the right type of communities for you. So I love that you're intentional about building your own community. So let's dive into self-sabotage and explain what it is, because I think, as I said in the intro, lots of people are doing it and it's in their lives, but perhaps don't realise what the term itself means and have thought about this in their own lives.
Absolutely. So I love the fact that you have me on here as a self-sabotage expert, because let me tell you, I am the best self-saboteur that I've ever known. So I am versed and almost a professional at self-sabotaging myself on every possible level. And I spent quite a number of decades actually living in the self-sabotaging space.
Mm.
The primary self-sabotaging behavior is in how we think, and that is followed by addictions that we participate in. And addictions are usually is a wide range of addictions. The addiction that I specialize in is food addiction, but there's usually comorbidities with food addiction, such as alcohol addiction, drug addiction, nicotine addiction, porn addiction, gambling addiction, shopping addiction. There's so many different ways to participate in addictive behavior. And so the way that I would describe what self-sabotage is any type of narrative that is running in our internal world that steers us in a direction that is not necessarily a positive direction, or a direction that we have set for ourselves that is something that we want. The most common one that a lot of women go through is weight loss, for example. And the self-sabotaging behavior during a weight loss journey, or someone who's looking to get healthy or looking to feel better in general, looking to lose weight, comes in the form of food addiction, for example, or thoughts and thought patterns and behaviors that exhibit themselves when it's time to go to the gym, or thoughts and ideas that come into someone's mind that says, well, this is not sustainable for you. You can't do this. This is not going to work for you. You're the exception to the rule, and it works for everybody, but you're different. It's not going to work for you. So they begin with feelings, and then the feelings turn into thoughts, and then the thoughts turn into actions, and those actions become habits. And eventually we become experts at self-sabotaging patterns and habits of behavior that, when left untreated or unnoticed, lead us to a completely different place over the long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting how you've described that. And I think for lots of women, there are behaviours like perfectionism or procrastination that are self-sabotaging behaviours as well, that, come from a place perhaps of self-doubt and lack of self-worth, that, lead to them, as you said, you have these thoughts that create the beliefs, that create the actions, and you end up where you hold yourself back. So, a very common one is, I'm not a person who can eat healthy. I'll never be a person who's fit and able to stick to an exercise routine. And you then put things in your way, and maybe it's reprioritized, isn't it? So that you say, oh, well, I don't have time to go to the gym because the kids always need me on an evening, when really there are ways to manage around that, but you're putting that in your way without realizing you're intentionally doing it. And so those beliefs that many of us have are, programmed into us as kids, aren't that often? It's in our subconscious programming. So it's there very deep, as you said, and becomes habits so that we don't even realize they're happening. And so for yourself, Terry, how did this manifest with yourself with your weight loss journey?
It in a very interesting way, right? So the first thing that manifested, and just for everybody listening, by the time I was 37 years old, I had gotten up to 210 pounds, and I am 5'3".
Wow.
And I began having a lot of health issues. So I began having chest pains, severe anxiety. I was hospitalized twice, believing I was having heart attacks. I had 18 ovarian cysts, depression, alcohol abuse. Luckily, I did not get to the alcoholic state. Um, but a lot of issues like that. So I had an alcohol addiction, I had a food addiction, I had a work addiction. That's another one. Workaholism is also an addiction. I had all kinds of things just going in every direction. That was not a good direction. And so eventually I woke up out of this perpetual state of numbing myself, numbing the stress, numbing the overwhelm, numbing the feelings that I was having, that, it's maybe my life is not going in the right direction. And I decided that it was time to begin a journey of getting into better health. And I went on all kinds of diets. I tried every diet you can imagine: keto, Atkins, South Beach, vegan. That lasted 6 months. It's a funny story. Um, but every possible diet you can imagine, I tried it, and I noticed that right before and right after the diet is when I gained the most weight. Right. So let's say I would start the diet January 1st. Between December 1st and 31st, I would gain 20 pounds. And then, I would go on this super restrictive, super rigid diet. I would follow it to perfection. I would do whatever I had to do. And then once the diet was over, 6 months after that, I was double gaining whatever I'd lost. Or if I had lost 30 pounds, I had gained 55 pounds back. Right.
Wow.
And so this cycle kept repeating over and over again for about 8 years. And I tried it all. And eventually I came to the conclusion that I need help. I need to find someone to help me because this is not working out. And I reached out to a holistic, integrative doctor in my area. And it was a very interesting intake process where she asked me things about before I was born, while my mother was pregnant with me, about how my grandmother's life was when she was pregnant with my mother, and just kind of unpacked a lot of stress and trauma that could have potentially been implanted into my cells as my mother was in her mother's womb, because at that point I already existed as matter, which I found to be mind-blowing. And she said, you have a lot of things. You've been through a lot in your life, generationally and firsthand. And she said, you really have to go through the emotions of unpacking all of these experiences, because at the end of the day, all of your addictions and all of these behaviors are coming from a place of not being able to have processed all these events that have happened around you and to you and with you and so on. And so I began that process. I was very, very surprised to discover that the weight gain was not a physical issue that I was having. I did not have the genetics to be overweight. I did not, I wasn't predisposed to gaining weight. It was a lot of energetic and emotional coping. It was an emotional and energetic coping mechanism to continue to numb down things I did not want to address or things that I did not want to process. And in that particular time frame, I began to lose weight. I began to be able to keep it off, and I wanted to take it to the next level. And that's when I reached out to a coach who specialized in strength training, and bodybuilding. And that's when really I fell in love with the entire journey of transforming and becoming a new person. But throughout that process, I discovered I had an emotional eating problem. I had an addiction problem. I had an alcohol problem. I had a perfectionistic problem. I had a workaholic problem. And it just kept going and going. And every time one sabotaging behavior was addressed or I became aware of it, another one would pop up. And so it's an ever continuing process of always being on your toes and being aware of what you're doing, because you may think you have it covered, but there's always something else to work on. And that's the beauty of life, right?
Yeah, and that's health, isn't it? There is no finish line. It's an ever evolving, ever growing, ever enhancing experience that and it becomes a part of who you are. And the more you invest in the right habits for your health, the better you feel, and you get those ripple effects. And so it's just a continuous journey. And the same with personal growth and self-development. It's not a one and done thing, is it? And, life changes. We are very, very, very deep as a human being. And as you said, there's so much that is ingrained in our very, very inner core from the fact that we are this matter of cells, and that's come from the generations before, and as well as the environment and everything that's gone into producing us. So yeah, I think there's so much that we can continuously work on, which isn't a negative thing, and it's not something that means it's kind of like, oh, this is too hard, which I think a lot of women think about it as. It's an opportunity, because once you get going, you do get the ripple effects, but you also then are moving to that next level. You're leveling up all of the time, aren't you, as you learn and grow. So as you were making these changes to your life and improving your health and gradually losing weight and getting fit, was there like a trigger to you then sabotaging yourself as you were making progress?
All the time. It really was a daily occurrence. So
Mm.
there was always a reason why this wasn't going to work, right? I would hear things like this in my own head. Who do you think you are? What are you thinking? What are you, some kind of a model? You think that you deserve to be comfortable in a bathing suit? I mean, that's for movie stars and models. You're just a normal regular person, and nobody cares about you. Nobody cares what you look like. Nobody cares what you're doing. And this was the repetitive thought that kept coming up all the time. Nobody cares about what you look like. Nobody gives a crap about what you're doing. And who cares if you look good? And one day I said, you know what? Enough. I'm done with this. And I declared that I don't care how ridiculous this is. I don't care how old. Oh, you're too old. That was another one, right? You're too old. You're 45 years old. You're done. Like, you're over the hill. Nobody gives a crap about you. So that was just the continuous narrative that was playing on repeat. And so one day I decided, I said, I'm declaring and I'm going to command that I'm going to do this. I'm going to go as far as I can go and see what happens. Because
Mm.
there's nothing negative that's going to come out of me trying. What is the downside to trying to get as healthy as possible, or chasing feeling as good as possible? There's no downside. So in my mind, there was no argument back. And if no one cared, that was okay for me, right? Because I got the benefit no matter what. And I had to continuously battle this narrative, this identity that I had created long time ago, that I didn't matter. Nobody cared about me. Nobody um, thought it was important. It was mockable, right? So the fear of humiliation and being humiliated was constantly playing its violin in my mind, that people are going to laugh at you. You're going to humiliate yourself. um it's ridiculous. You're going to embarrass yourself. It just kept going and going and going.
Mm. And that inner talk is something that most of us we all have that inner voice, and most of us have that inner negative critic speaking to us the way you've just described it was speaking to you. And that can be, I guess, one of the easier ways to realize that you are self-sabotaging yourself, when you have that voice there. I know certainly for myself and for other people that I've worked with, and I'm wondering if this is the same for you, that sometimes there are more hidden ways that you're self-sabotaging, like it's not that voice chirping away in your head. But for example, with me, whenever I've tried to eat healthier and wanted to lose a bit of weight, as soon as I'd start to feel that I had lost a little bit of weight, I realized that I was starting to like treat myself, if you like, to unhealthier choices. And it wasn't that that voice was going like it does for some women, you know, you aren't ever going to lose weight. Oh, well, even if you've lost this weight, you're not going to keep it off. It wasn't a noise and a voice. It was something else, you know, there's still a subconscious programming that was then like pulling me back to that place of comfort that I'm, you know, used to being in, and it's kind of your brain keeping you safe, isn't it? So do you find that that's something which is common with the women you work with as well?
It here's the thing, right? So the self narrative is very intelligent.
Mm.
As intelligent as we are, it's more intelligent. As witty, that as the wittier we are, the more wittier the self narrative is, because it knows what buttons to push, right? So it every day it comes into our lives dressed up as some other character, right? So like one day it could be really negative, and then the next day it shows up as a really nice, kind, logical, um, warm voice. And it says, "Oh my goodness, you have worked so hard these last 6 months. Don't you think it's time to take a break? You've deserved it. You can celebrate. This is good enough. You've done it. You did it. You can stop." And so if we cave into that voice, what ends up
Mm.
happening is we go right back to our regular routine and our normal habits. So it's very important to differentiate between the kind saboteur, the funny saboteur, the mean saboteur. There's a saboteur that likes to overschedule everything, right? There is a saboteur that is a protective saboteur. If it's not perfect, then you're going to embarrass yourself. Let's fix that. We can't do this right now because we don't look so great today. Like, for example, I have a big rash on my face, so I could have said, "Hey, I'm not doing this podcast today because I'm not perfect." But there's the kinds of stuff that goes on in our minds, right? And
Mm.
so if we allow that voice to control our behavior and our actions instead of our deeper consciousness or higher consciousness really pursuing our purpose in life and pursuing improvement and self growth and a growth mindset, we will be stuck at whatever level we've reached up to that point for the rest of our lives. And there's, a lot of people that are stuck, right?
Yeah.
And that's why they reach out for help.
Mm. And all of it is linked to that programming you've had. Ultimately, you know, majority comes through the ages of 0 to 7. And, you know, even in that example I've shared, and where you were saying, you know, that it's that more kind, soft voice, even if you might not hear it as a voice telling you deserve a reward and you've worked really hard, that's come from something in your childhood that has created this belief system that when you achieve something, you use food as a reward. And obviously, food for many of us has lots of different beliefs attached to it and emotions attached to those beliefs, doesn't it? And which makes it one of the toughest things to change when it comes to health. You know, that's why the diet industry is so big, or one of the reasons anyway, as well as the fact lots of the diets aren't the right kind of diet to maintain a healthy weight and way of life with. But that's why so many people struggle when it comes to trying to change their eating habits, especially if it's with a goal of losing weight. So when you work with some of the women in your programs, what is the kind of any like key tool that you use with them to start to shift that self-saboteur inside of their heads?
So, depending on what the behavior is, right? depending on whether it's food related, or maybe it's a different type of fear of going to the gym, or it could be anything really. It could be the mindset or the mind of refusing to accept the current reality that things are working, things are changing. um, we do look different. Sometimes there's that disconnect there of what we have achieved already, and where we think we actually are, and we believe that it's not working. But depending on what it is, because there's a lot of points of friction in this particular journey. But depending on what it is, so let's say it's food, and let's say that I'll use myself as an example. Let's say that I'm prone to overeating a couple of times a week, and that throws me completely off my caloric deficit for the week. And I start to notice that, these things happen at a pretty regular intervals, and they're preceded, or they're followed by a particular feeling, right? So it always begins with a particular feeling. And it's different for everybody. It's not always the same thing. But the common ones to watch out for are stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and tiredness and boredom. And a lot of times, what will happen is if we're stressed and overwhelmed, or we're anxious, we will equate food as the vehicle to get us out of that particular emotional state. And so we talk about these things, right? So, okay, so when I reached for the Haagen Dazs point of chocolate chip ice cream, I was feeling very tired, overwhelmed, and scared. And I used the ice cream to calm and soothe and cool down my emotional state, because I was looking to feel relief from that emotion that I was experiencing before the ice cream. And so it's usually not about the particular food, or it's not about the particular thing. Like, it could have been a jar of Nutella, or it could have been really a frozen yogurt that was a lot less dense in calories, and that would have done the same job, right? And so that's what I like to kind of drill into, is what were you feeling before it happened, and then what were you actually looking to achieve? And in between that was the vehicle that what was the vehicle that you used to achieve it? It could be shopping, right? It could be a lot of other things that will change your emotional state from one thing to the other. Now, the trick is over time to learn how not to use food, but self-soothe, and be able to manage your emotional state on your own without needing a vehicle or a tool to do so.
Yeah, and I was smiling when you said Nutella, because that used to be one of my things that I would go to when I was in, an emotional state. And I think so many of us are mindlessly eating. We just do it because that's become our habits, and the response, as you said, to certain feelings and situations. But bringing that mindfulness into, okay, why do I want this? And it might be, the alcohol. I've done some work personally on this around having a drink, on a weekend. It's like, okay, well, what is it that makes me think, well, it's Friday night, I should have a glass of wine, and it wasn't necessarily that I really wanted the alcohol as such. It's more of the celebration of it being a weekend and feeling that I deserve. And in my belief system, there are a lot of um, limiting beliefs around rewarding myself, both in a positive way and when things are not good. But then when you're mindful of that, you can make intentional choices, can't you? And that's when you can start to then shift away from those ones that aren't serving you to achieve the goals that you've got.
I love that. And the celebratory aspect of
Mm.
that, I think that's great. I think that celebrating things that we have achieved, and celebrating things that we have done for the week, the month, the year. They're absolutely a fantastic way to acknowledge ourselves and to give ourselves recognition and to reward ourselves. The issue is when, like you said, we do it mindlessly because our brain has been programmed to instantly solve this issue, right? Oh, I want to celebrate, I want to reward. Boom, alcohol. Boom, cookies. Boom, chocolate cake. And so it becomes mindless because the brain is wired to be a very efficient, optimal CPU in our machine body, right? And so it does a lot of things on automation, and that's programmed to function autonomously. And it's, as soon as the brain has a problem that it needs to be solved and it figures out the problem, it makes the connection, and over time that becomes a really uh, fast responding type of action. And so if we don't become aware and intentional about the choices that we're making, even a celebration can lead us down the path of self-destruction if we participate in it too often. But I think celebrating is so amazing, and that is a great way to recognize ourselves.
Yeah, and it's a part of the program and the framework I use in my programs because it is so important when people are trying to make changes. You need to reflect on the progress you are making and celebrate yourself. But it doesn't always have to be with a chocolate cake or a glass of wine. And that's the awareness that we want people to have, isn't it? And I think, we touched on perfectionism. I think this is something that is really common when it comes to health, certainly around diet and weight and exercise, in that many women think they have to do it perfectly or there isn't any point in doing anything. It's that belief that it has to be all or nothing. And so they're holding themselves back again. This self-sabotage coming into play because they're telling themselves, well, if I can't eat healthy evening meals 7 days a week, then what's the point in eating two home cooked healthy meals a week? And so I think that's a big piece of the work a lot of women struggle with doing, because we live in this world where it's being perceived that, well, you have to do it all, otherwise you're not going to get any benefit. And I think, yeah, is that a challenge that you find working with clients as well?
Across the board. And here's my answer to that: we're going to create two stories that are running in parallel. One story is going to be that all these things that we're doing, eating well, exercising, taking care of our emotional well being, our mental health, all these things, we're going to call that the wellness investment portfolio. Okay. And then on the other side, we're going to have our financial portfolio. And our financial portfolio is going to require that we make a $1 deposit every single day into that portfolio. Our wellness portfolio is going to do the same, except the $1 is going to be exercise, nutrition, cardio, mental health, and emotional well-being, and they're all divided into 20 cents each, give or take, right? And so we're participating in this exercise now. So every day we go in and we make our deposit. We put $1 here, we put $1 there. We put $1 here, we put $1 there. Well, one day we don't have the full dollar. We only have 80 cents. In our financial portfolio, are we going to say, forget it? I don't have the dollar. I only have 80 cents, so I'm not going to put it in. Probably not, right? So 80 cents is still good, even if it's not a dollar. So why do we do that in our wellness portfolio? So if we only got 80% of our meals for the day, or we only got 80% of our workout in, or we only got 50% of our cardio in, or 10%, it doesn't matter, right? Why would we throw that investment into the trash because we didn't have the full dollar? And we do that on a daily basis. And not only that, but here's the kicker. Ready? So let's say one day we only have 20 cents. And that's all we had that day, right? And we say, it's not $1. I'm not putting the 20 cents in my wellness fund. And as a matter of fact, in order to punish myself, I'm not going to put anything in for the next 7 days.
Yeah, that's a really good way of positioning it. And that's so true. It's like, a lot of people start out on a Monday, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to be good, I'm going to eat, nutritious food, I'm going to go to the gym. And it lasts until Wednesday. And then Thursday, they think, oh, I haven't done all of that today. So what's the point on Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Let's just wait and start again on Monday. And you're right, everything you are putting in is an investment in your overall health for the rest of your life. And you are going to feel some benefit from a 5-minute walk, even if the usual walk to top up your pot to the right amount is an hour walk. It's still better than nothing at all, isn't it? So that's a brilliant way to look at it. And I haven't ever explained it like you just have, Terry, but I have compared it to your pension, the pension that you pay into for when you retire from work and life, that funds you for the rest of your life. We are always investing in that because we know we want that great life when we do give up work. And it's the same with our health. We need to be building that bank, that portfolio, as you've put it, of strong health, so that we can then live long and strong to enjoy what hopefully we have financially in our pension pot.
Exactly. Except the difference between our investment portfolio and our wellness portfolio is that we can automate the investment portfolio and the deposits can happen in the background. We don't even see those funds, and it just runs itself in the background. With our wellness portfolio, no one, nothing, nowhere is there an invention that can do any of it for us, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about, if you can, I'll give you another example. So imagine the most famous, successful, richest trillionaire, quadrillionaire in the world that exists currently. And there's a few that are very overweight. Now, think about all the excuses that us normal people, regular people, always have when we look at a celebrity that is a trillionaire, quadrillionaire. The thoughts are, well, they have a personal chef, they have a personal trainer, they have all these things, they have all the time, they have money, they you know, there's no excuses why they can't live in a healthy way. But guess what? No one, no matter how rich you are, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much staff you have, no matter how many people you hire, no one can do the exercises for you. And no one can duct tape your mouth so you're not binging at 4 a.m. and you have your head in the refrigerator, right? You are the only person that can do these things for yourself, no matter what your position is in life. So that makes us all equal in that way.
Yeah, and I think that brings us nicely in a full circle back to where we started with the conversation on self-sabotage, in that we are responsible for self-sabotaging ourselves because our brain is this immensely powerful organ that we have in our body that makes us human. But on the flip side, it also has the ability to make the changes and put those new habits into place to enable you to not self-sabotage and actually be self-investing to grow this wellness portfolio so you have strong health. And I always say your habits are your superpower because, as you described, they're so much a program within our brain that happens without thought, without effort, without energy, that when you build those right habits, it does become often effortless. People will say to me, well, how do you manage to work out and how have you got willpower? And so it's not about that. It used to be about that kind of stuff, but then I built habits so that it became very much a part of who I am, that I just automatically want to work out, automatically want to move my body in different ways. And so that's the key, isn't it? It's flipping those habits that are sabotaging you to habits that are supporting you in the way that you want. So to wrap us up, Terry, I'd love to get 3 simple tips from you that someone could use to help build better habits to avoid and reduce or limit the self-sabotaging that might be holding them back from better health.
Absolutely. So the first thing is set a goal, and set an achievable goal that you will feel successful in achieving on a daily basis. So it could be something like have one meal that is per your macros or fits within your general structure of a day that you consider to be healthy. Or maybe the goal is have X amount of protein per day and divide it up by a couple of meals and just hit that on a daily basis. Set the goal, make it achievable, get the ingredients and the products you need, make it easy for yourself, prepare it, throw it in the refrigerator, and then observe yourself. Observe the feelings and the thoughts that come up for you when it's time to do the thing you said you want to do, and when it's time to eat that meal, or when it's time to go to the gym and maybe just do one set of something, like let's say one set of squats every day. I'm going to do 10 squats every day, or I'm going to do 10 push-ups every day, and I'm going to do them right next to my computer as soon as I get off my first morning call, for example, right? So
Yeah.
make it really, really obvious, really easy, and then observe and just absorb it, and kind of in a loving way without getting too judgmental towards yourself, and play with the whole experience with curiosity and say, like an experiment, kind of like, like you're running yourself through a funny, cool experiment, because you want to learn as much about yourself as ourselves. We want to learn as much as possible. And here's the holy grail to this. And I'm going to leave you guys with this. On average, most people have 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. 80% of them are negative. 95% of them repeat on a daily basis. What happens if we flip the narrative? What if 80% of those thoughts become positive? Or not even 80, 50, make it 50. 50% of our 60,000 thoughts become positive, or they're related to self-growth or encouraging or powerful or empowering or whatever it may be, if we become aware of them. And what if those thoughts also repeated on a daily basis? Think about the magnificence of our body, our brain, our mind, our energy, and what we can achieve, not just as individuals, but as a collective. Think about the impact that we can make as a collective for this generation and many other generations.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's my vision for my company, is to, make healthy habits normal so our kids grow up just knowing that that's how you live a good life, taking care of yourself, moving your body, eating well, managing stress, all of those things, along with the positive, self-supporting kind of thoughts and inner dialogue, are what will help you to have a great life. And I think we have the power as women to make those changes ourselves now in our lives, so that that is passed down to our children and to their children and so on, which is just a fantastic and very empowering thought, isn't it? That I hope helps whoever is listening. So the 3 steps there, Terry: setting the daily goals, observing them, and then flipping that inner dialogue to be more positive and seeing the ripple effects that come from that. I think that's fantastic advice. So if anyone wants to connect with you, I'll pop everything into the show notes. But if you want to let them know where they can find out more about you, and I know that you do run some very incredible retreats, depends where people are in the world, or maybe they want to travel to them. So yeah, just let everyone know a little bit about that, Terry.
Absolutely. So you can find me at thehouseofrose.com. It's Thor for short, THOR retreats. And we run monthly or bi-monthly retreats for individuals that are looking to kickstart their journey, whatever journey that may be. There's many different reasons to come and hang out with us for a couple of days. And you can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is How Good Can It Get?
And I guess you're still working on how good it can get, because as you said, it's a ever growing, ever evolving process of building strong health, and so it's always about progressing and improving your life along that path. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your story as well, Terry, and I'm sure that it will help people listening to think about their own inner dialogue and that self-critic, and how perhaps they've been holding themselves back, and can flip that way of thinking to sabotage less and support a lot more. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. It was a pleasure to chat with you. I absolutely love this topic, one of my favorites, because just changing one thing leads to monumental shifts.
Exactly. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining today. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please remember to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. It would be massively appreciated if you could leave a rating and review to help other women discover the podcast and build their own healthy, happy life. If you're struggling with the changes perimenopause is bringing your way, and you're ready to reclaim your vitality, to embrace this new chapter of your life with confidence and joy, then why not download our free guide, 10 Ways to Feel Good Again, your perimenopausal revival guide. Inside, you'll get 10 proven ways to enhance your well-being and rediscover the joy of living life to the fullest. And we all want to live a great life, don't we? So download your free guide now at lifenowcoaching.uk/feel good again. The link is in the show notes. You can follow Life Now Coaching on Instagram and LinkedIn, and visit our website at lifenow.uk. All of the links are in the show description. I really hope you've enjoyed today's topic and conversation, and can't wait to have you back again next week for more tips on living healthy and happy right now. Take care.